Have you ever found yourself checking your phone for the 10th time in an hour, waiting for a name to light up the screen? A name that, if you're being brutally honest with yourself, rarely does. You replay a 5-minute conversation from last week, searching for hidden meaning in a casual compliment. You craft the perfect, witty reply to a social media story, hoping it will be the one that finally unlocks something more. You are pouring your emotional energy into a well that never seems to fill, loving someone who, for whatever reason, just doesn't love you back. It's a uniquely painful and incredibly common human experience. It feels like a story written just for you, yet it's a script that millions of us have followed. And it begs a profound question. Why do we do this? Why do we invest so much of our hope, our time, and our precious emotional real estate into building these elaborate, beautiful fantasies of a future with someone who gives us almost nothing in the present? What is it about that single breadcrumb of attention that makes us believe we can build a whole life from it? The answer isn't simple. And it's not about being foolish or weak. It's about deep-seated psychological patterns that we often learn long before we ever experience our first crush. To understand this, we need to look at the different roles we play in these one-sided dramas. Let's start with a very common one, the fixer. You might recognize this person instantly. They are drawn to people who are, for lack of a better word, broken. They see potential where others see problems. Their love isn't just affection, it's a mission. The person they're drawn to might be emotionally unavailable, struggling with their past, or caught in a cycle of self-destructive behavior. The fixer looks at this and doesn't run away. They lean in. Their internal monologue sounds something like this. They just need someone who truly sees them. If I love them enough, if I'm patient enough, I can heal them. My love will be the thing that finally changes them. Psychologically, this isn't just about altruism. It's about control and validation. For the fixer, their sense of self-worth is deeply entangled with their ability to be useful, to have a positive effect on someone else. If they can fix this person, it proves that they are good, worthy, and powerful. It gives them a purpose within the dynamic, a clearly defined role that feels safer than simply being loved for who they are. The relationship becomes a project, and the pursuit of fixing the other person becomes a distraction from their own unaddressed needs. Think of the person who stays with a partner who is chronically non-committal, always promising to change soon. They listen to all their problems, offer endless support, and celebrate the tiniest moments of progress as evidence that their efforts are working, all while their own needs for stability and reciprocity go completely unmet. The unavailable person's brokenness gives the fixer a reason to exist in the relationship, but it's a reason that keeps them locked in a cycle of giving without ever truly receiving. Then there's another character in this story, a close cousin to the fixer, but with a very different strategy, the fantasist. This person doesn't necessarily need a project to fix, they just need a spark to build a fire. The fantasist is a master storyteller, an architect of intricate inner worlds built on the flimsiest of foundations. They can take a single, ambiguous text message and spin it into a 3-act romance. A shared glance across a crowded room becomes a silent promise of a future together. They live on crumbs, but in their mind, each crumb is a piece of a magnificent banquet. This pattern is fueled by a powerful need for escape. Reality can be messy, disappointing, and complicated. Real relationships require vulnerability, conflict, and compromise. The fantasy, however, is perfect. It's a curated highlight reel, where the other person is always their best self, the connection is always profound, and the ending is always happy. The psychological driver here is the avoidance of potential pain and rejection. By keeping the relationship largely in their head, the fantasist maintains complete control. The person they love can't disappoint them in the fantasy. They can't say the wrong thing or fail to meet a need. For example, think about someone with a crush on a coworker. They might spend their days analyzing every brief interaction by the coffee machine. A simple, "How was your weekend?" becomes proof of genuine interest. If that coworker likes their social media post, their heart soars with the possibility of what it all means. They construct a detailed narrative about their shared future, imagining dates, conversations, and a life together, all based on a handful of polite, professional exchanges. They are in love not with the person, but with the potential of the person, a potential they have created and perfected in their own mind. It's a beautiful, intoxicating story, but its greatest tragedy is that the only person who knows it exists is them. Now, here's where it gets a little more complex, a little more hidden. The final pattern is perhaps the most paradoxical: the protector. On the surface, the protector seems just like the others, yearning, hopeful, and deeply in love with someone they can't have. They talk about their unrequited feelings. They lament their bad luck. And they appear to want nothing more than a real, reciprocal relationship. But deep down, unconsciously, the protector is choosing unavailable people for one simple reason: it's safe. The entire dynamic is a brilliant, self-protective strategy to avoid true intimacy. Real intimacy is terrifying. It means being seen, warts and all. It means being vulnerable to being hurt, to being left, to being rejected by someone who actually does love you back, which can feel infinitely more painful. So, the protector's subconscious mind makes a clever bargain. It picks a target who is fundamentally unattainable: the married boss, the friend who lives in another country, the person who has explicitly said they aren't interested in a commitment. By doing this, they get to experience all the thrilling emotions of a crush: the longing, the hope, the drama, without any of the actual risk of a real relationship. The unavailability of the other person becomes the perfect excuse. The relationship can't work, but it's not their fault. It's because of the circumstances. This protects their ego and, more importantly, protects their heart from the possibility of a much deeper kind of failure. An everyday example is the person who consistently finds themselves drawn to people who are just getting out of a serious relationship and aren't ready for anything new. They might pursue them for months, accepting the excuse because it validates their own deep-seated fear. If the person were to suddenly turn around and say, "Okay, I'm ready, let's do this," the protector would likely panic and might even sabotage the situation. Because the pursuit was never about getting the person, it was about the safety of the pursuit itself. The unrequited love becomes a shield, protecting them from the very thing they claim to want the most. Each of these patterns, the fixer, the fantasist, and the protector, is a different mask for the same core issue, a different way we try to navigate our deep-seated needs for love, validation, and safety. These roles we play, the fixer, the fantasist, the protector, are not conscious choices we make one morning over coffee. Nobody decides, "I think I'll spend the next year of my life investing my heart into someone who will never fully return my feelings." These are deeply ingrained scripts, learned so early in our lives that they feel less like a choice and more like gravity. To truly understand why this particular flavor of pain can feel so magnetic, we have to travel back in time. Not to the first time we met this person, but to the first time we ever learned what love was supposed to feel like. We have to go back to childhood. Our first relationships with our caregivers create the emotional blueprint for every relationship that follows. If you grew up in a home where love was conditional, where you had to be the good child, the high achiever, or the problem solver to receive praise and affection, you might have learned a dangerous lesson. My worth is based on what I can do for others. Love is something you earn. Is it any wonder, then, that you might grow into the fixer, drawn to people who need saving, because that is the only dynamic where you know your role and feel confident you can secure your value. Or perhaps you had caregivers who were physically present but emotionally absent. Maybe they were dealing with their own struggles, and while they provided for your basic needs, there was an emotional distance, a lack of consistent warmth and connection. As a child, you learn to survive on very little. You learn to treasure small moments of attention and fill in the vast empty spaces with your own imagination and hope. This emotional environment is the perfect training ground for the fantasist. You become an expert at living on crumbs because for a long time, crumbs were all you had. The feeling of longing for more from someone who is right there but just out of reach feels intensely familiar. It feels like home. And then there's the protector. For some, childhood was a place where getting too close emotionally was genuinely unsafe. It led to unpredictability, emotional turmoil, or pain. You learned very quickly that vulnerability was a liability, so you subconsciously seek out people who can't get too close. The unrequited love story becomes your armor. It allows you to feel the longing for connection from a safe distance, without ever having to risk the terrifying reality of letting someone all the way in. The pain of loving someone unavailable, as sharp as it is, feels safer than the potential devastation of being abandoned by someone who is fully available. The pattern isn't the problem. It's a very clever, outdated solution to an old wound. This brings us to the uncomfortable truth at the heart of this entire dynamic. The relentless pursuit of an unavailable person is almost never about them. It's about you. It is a subconscious quest to finally heal that old wound and prove, once and for all, that you are worthy of love. Think about it. The internal logic goes something like this. If I, the person who always had to earn love, can finally make this broken person whole, it will prove I am fundamentally good and worthy. Or, if I, the person who was never seen, can make this distant person finally choose me, it will rewrite the story of my invisibility. Or, if I, who fears intimacy, can win over this impossible person, maybe I won't have to face my real fears. We turn the object of our affection into a symbol. They become the final boss in the video game of our self-worth. Winning their love feels like it would retroactively validate every part of us that has ever felt inadequate. This is the shadow side of unrequited love. It reduces another complex human being to a prize to be won, an achievement that will unlock our own self-acceptance. And here's the most tragic part. Even if you won, even if they turned around tomorrow and declared their undying love, it likely wouldn't fix the core issue. The feeling of inadequacy would still be there, waiting for the next test, because you cannot fix an internal problem with an external solution. The emptiness you are trying to fill isn't a person-shaped hole, it's a self-shaped hole. So how do you break the cycle? The first step isn't to force yourself to stop loving them. That's like trying to stop the tide from coming in. The first step is radical, compassionate awareness. It's about observing your own behavior without judgment. Notice when you're checking their social media. Notice when you're building a fantasy in your head. Notice the pull towards trying to fix their problems. Just notice. Don't shame yourself for it. Instead, get curious. Ask yourself a powerful question. What is this pattern doing for me? What emotional need is this obsession trying to meet? For the fixer, it might be meeting a need to feel competent and in control. For the fantasist, a need to escape into a world that feels more beautiful and less painful than reality. For the protector, a need to feel safe from the perceived dangers of real vulnerability. Once you identify the need, the real work begins. It's the slow, unglamorous, but life-changing work of learning to meet that need for yourself. It's about building a sense of worth that isn't dependent on being someone's savior. It's about creating a life that is so fulfilling and rich that you no longer need a fantasy to escape to. And it's about learning to be your own safe harbor, recognizing that you can handle the risks of real love because your sense of self is no longer on the line. The real love story you've been waiting for isn't with them. It's the one that's waiting to be written with yourself. So, as you reflect on all of this, I want you to ask yourself honestly, which pattern feels most familiar to you? And what is it protecting you from? Answering that question is the first step toward finally choosing a love that loves you back, starting with the person in the mirror. I'd really appreciate it if you hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell.